get more airtime than the other people. So when you break into small groups, everybody has a voice. The other thing that can be difficult when you do something like that, and you're asking everybody to share, you have very large tables that need more time, and then you have a smaller table that has needs less time because there's 4 people here. And so you have to kind of balance between, the needs of the whole group and, not leaving a group sitting there. This group used their time really well. They started decorating their paper and having conversations. I was also really glad to hear so much laughing and laughter. Humor is a good way to engage your group. And I also, at almost every table, while people were sharing, I saw people say, oh, that's me too, I'm going to write that down. So you start to see how you have things in common with other people and strengths with other people. So also using a timer. I set a timer each when I said I'd give you 3 minutes, I gave you 3 minutes, I gave you 10 minutes. Timers can help keep you on track because the time just goes really fast, especially when you see that people are engaged with someone. The tendency is to have a little more time. The other thing too that I would recommend you do that I did not do is give all the instructions at once before you invite movement. So I said, hey, did everybody get one of these? If not, get one. So before I even told you what the activity was, I had you start moving and then I lost your attention. So always give all of the instructions first. Make the instructions simple and clear before you ask people to move. Because once you ask people to move, you're going to lose time trying to collect the language. So I'd like to say I purposely did that for an example, but it just happened. So now let's look at the concerns and fears here. So the reason I had you put them over here was because I was going to break them into groups. So even though I prepared, here's another helpful tip, have your flip charts prepared ahead of time. I didn't put the titles here because I didn't want to affect your thinking about what your concerns were by saying, oh, there's technical issues and there's facilitation issues. So after all of your concerns were up here, then I put the titles up there. So that's just another hint. Get as prepared as you can, but you also don't want to give people information that's going to guide their discussion. So I broke this into technical, and those are things like you wrote here, red tape at the agency, billing, stuff like that. I take on too much, not sure how to set limits, my plate is too full, I'm not a good public speaker, I'm not able to get people to the group, like transportation issues are concerning, public speaking is a concern, boundaries, the effect on me, my family, helping versus not helping, stubborn, I don't give up. This one can be related to the boundary issue, right? Then I put a bunch right in the middle between technical and facilitation. These are all the people who are saying, I'm new. I don't know what to expect. I'm not a foster parent, so I'm concerned how can I teach foster parents if I'm not a foster parent myself. Not sure what problems I'll encounter. So everything here in the middle is all expected, right? I would expect that even after a full 2-day training, you would have questions and concerns, and you would wonder how this is going to be. And I always find whenever I'm teaching something new, and I say this to my instructors all the time, the first time feels really awkward. The second time feels a little bit better. By the third time, you're like, yes, I feel confident, I feel comfortable, I feel capable with this, I know where I can be more fluid with this. Kai, I'm not sure, sorry to call on you, but did you have that experience? That like, the first time around, were you on your phone?
Yeah,
Helpful hint. you to get comfortable? Like the first time when you're like, oh my God, what
Yeah,
am I
the
doing?
first time I was nervous every class, and then the second class I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, and by the third,
Yeah.
you were like, oh, I've
Yeah.
got this, yeah. So that's super normal. Facilitation, that's like being an instructor or facilitator of the group. A lot of the concerns were regarding the people in the class. The personalities, what they bring to the table. And fortunately, we're gonna do a whole activity about that today. Let's see if there were several people concerned that the content may be triggering for people who are in the class. Public speaking in large groups, this is kind of more in the middle as well. I worry that I may get frustrated with people who are in the group, who aren't letting me move things along, or stuck. We have an activity that we're going to be doing with that. Oops. Another helpful thing. Don't put cords where you're going to be walking. But that's most of it. All the other things are, about the controlling participant, people bringing their own baggage, drawing in the resistant participant or the quiet participant. We're going to address this. These questions I didn't put anywhere. These are the award-winning concerns. The ones that say, I don't have the answers. I don't have answers to unknown questions. Not being able to answer a question. I'm not going to be successful or helpful. The reason I say this is an award-winning concern is you should have that concern, and you should, it is always okay to not have an answer. And so as a facilitator, you're kind of it's a parallel process between what you're asking caregivers to do at home. So you would never say to a parent, you should know everything. You should never have a question. No, you would never say that to a parent. You'd say, well, how could you figure it out? That's the same for you. If you don't have an answer for the question, put it in a parking lot. I can say something like, I'm not sure about that, but I'm going to get the information. And if you have more classes to go, you say, and I'll give you the information next week. And if it's the last class, you say, I'm going to make sure I email you with the answer to that question. But we're going to figure it out. Or you can bounce it back to the group. Anybody have any thoughts about that? What's your experience with this? Does anybody have any ideas for where we can get the answers to that? Who are the resources in your community? Bounce it back, but you do not have to know all of the answers. You do not have to be everything to people in the class. Setting boundaries is really important. I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that. Any questions? Outline questions? We'll loop back to these concerns about people after we do that learning task. If you still have questions or concerns about how to support those people, we're going to figure it out as a group. Okay? So now I want to take a moment. On the tables, there's laminated quotes here. Can I have a volunteer, or 2 volunteers at each table? Some tables have 1, some tables have 2. Could I have a volunteer to go around the room and loudly read those quotes? These are quotes. I'm going to keep moving back as the sun is kind of coming. When I stand up here, the sun is kind of lighting me. These are quotes that people wrote in evaluations.
No, they were either emails that people sent me, and that was in their email, or I asked folks to let me know what they thought about the class. So they were the first round of people who went through RPC Plus in Vermont.
Great, thank you. So let's start over here.
It's from a Vermont foster mother of several kids. By increasing our understanding of trauma and being positive, sometimes it takes a bit more for these traumatized children in our care. As we are reminded in this class, the more positive feedback and praise given, the more the behavior will change. Turn things around and you will be surprised at how well it really does work.
Thank you. Is there another one?
Longtime Vermont foster mother. This class reminded me to look for the positive and by giving these kids more control. They will feel safe and comfortable and will act in a more positive way. I've been practicing it and it works.
Thank you. This table here?
A Vermont foster mother of a toddler. I gained a great deal of knowledge and respect into how experiencing trauma can affect a person at any time in a person's life. It is my reaction to the child's response that will make a difference in their life.
Thank you.
This one is from a pre-adopted Vermont mom of a toddler. One of the most powerful things for me that I took away from the class was how even when we do not expect it, something as simple as attitude, smells, atmosphere, and physical items can trigger a reaction from a past trauma experience in a child. The class gave me insight into ways that I can help my foster child cope with these triggers and to also be able to identify them when they happen. We were given many tools to aid in the way that we, as the caregivers, respond, comfort, and not enable behavior.
Thanks, Christy. We're going to bounce back to this table.
Vermont foster adopted parents. It was a wonderful course for teaching how to get to where you need to be when dealing with a kid who has trauma. It really opens your eyes to what these kids have been through, and now I can see what they are experiencing better. I learned so much.
Thank you. This table here?
Vermont foster mother of a 3-year-old girl. Since the class, I can honestly say that my attitude and response as far as when the child does have a reaction has totally changed. I no longer think that it is something I have done, but realize that whatever she is experiencing at the time probably has to do with something that she had to deal with earlier in her life.
Thanks. Do you have another one on the table? Would someone else like to read that?
Vermont foster parent. I thoroughly enjoyed this class. It was much better than I was expecting. Usually I don't go to these kinds of trainings because I think they are boring and you're sitting behind a desk all day and not retaining the information. This course was not like that. It was engaging and filled with great real-life material and skills.
Thank you.
This is from a Vermont foster father of 4 teenage boys. It's easy for us who have not lived through trauma to forget something innocuous can ignite the fuse to a ticking time bomb. It's classes like this that help us defuse that bomb or help us put the pieces back after it has gone off.
Thank you. Was there, that's the one there? Wow, so these are powerful statements. What comes to mind when you heard the different voices around the room, reading the statements? What theme kind of emerged for you? How did a class go from being a room of strangers or people who might have known each other a little bit in the community? How is it that you go from that to getting these powerful statements about how valuable this class was?
It was made in a trusting and safe environment.
Trusting and safe?
Empowering.
So what we did was we created community, right? Trust and safety.
Educational.
Educational and
Shared experience.
Relatable.
Knowledge is power, and when you understand something better, you're more able to handle it.
And shifted.
You're empowered.
Right.
Doug?
I heard relatable or relevant.
Yes.
It's functional.
Helpful hint, spelling doesn't matter. Hopeful. So I want to go back to relatable and relevant. What I think one of the huge strengths about this RPC Plus class, not only does it create incredible community, I haven't heard of a single class that has run where those participants who are in that room don't want to continue to have a connection with each other. People who have experienced, is that accurate?
Absolutely.
Yeah. right? There's a Facebook presence, it's, in some communities, activated more involvement with the support group. And so that happens because these things happen. The other really cool component of this, it's so hands-on. Like it's relatable, it's relevant, it's usable today. And in fact, the curriculum invites you to use it today. You fill out, you go home and it has things for you to try at home. It has things for the participants to try at home. It's not one of those things that you're like, oh, I'm gonna think about this and think how to incorporate this into my caregiving or how to incorporate this into my life. You go home and you can use it. And that also makes people come back because it makes sense for them. It makes sense that it's meeting a need. Anything else we want to add to this? It's also engagement. I heard someone say something, but I didn't hear what it was.
I was just saying, it was really accepting. I mean, I noticed that when the group sat down, and all of us had struggles, all of us had times where we felt like we were losing the battle of parenting that child, and there was never any kind of shame or anything involved with it.
So here, shared experience and accepting really are related to each other, right? It's also like you're encouraged to take risks. You're encouraged to be vulnerable. We invite people, participants, to bring their struggles to the room and acknowledge that sharing those struggles is a strength. Right? So here's another parallel process. That's why I asked you to talk about your concerns about doing this. Because you're asking the participants who are in your classes to do the same thing. What are you afraid of? What's your struggle? What's going to get in your way? Right? And then another parallel to class is it's an emotional container. Community is Did you talk about that yesterday, Amy? Yes. Yeah. So it's another parallel process that you're doing here. So what you create in the classroom and how you act in the classroom in terms of being welcoming, being accepting, encouraging people to take challenges, then those caregivers get to go home and do that with the kids that they're taking care of also. So another time just to pour out boys. And these, I know this is super silly, but I just really kind of want to put out to you, like for the new people, those people who are concerned about not doing it, these are things that experienced instructors or facilitators do naturally, and we might not think about that we're doing it, so we might not tell you what's important. So that's why I'm trying to do a parallel process of when I'm doing something in class to point out to you, you can do this too. So writing and then turning and speaking. That's a challenge. Sometimes people, new facilitators, new instructors, get caught with writing and talking like this. How is that problematic?
You can't hear as well.
You can't hear as well.
Not reading the room,
Reading the room is so important. Making eye contact while someone's talking about something, you can make eye contact. You're creating all of these things you just said are so important for creating community. I'm making eye contact. I'm validating that you said something. I'm walking around the room, right? You're reading the room. You have a question.
Is there one facilitator, or do you often have, are there sometimes two?
That's a great question. Any class I've ever been to, there were 2 facilitators, but I'm not sure. I'm going to bounce that to Amy.
That's been the true the majority of the time, and people have done it different ways. Sometimes people really break it up, and I'm in charge of this week, and you're in charge of next week. But there's usually one main person speaking for that activity, and the other person might jump in or add something. Does that resonate for folks?
Yeah.
And you might bounce that from week to week, you know, where someone might be more of the technical or the logistic person one week, and someone will be teaching the content, and then the next week you might flip again, which is, Christy's an assistant instructor in the Burlington district. That's a little bit of a different model than what you're used to, where one person holds all of the content, and then there's somebody else who is the
It's helpful
assistant.
to have somebody else in the room with you, who knows
Right.
what's happening.
Right, and so it's helpful, and it didn't come up here today, but sometimes people say, I'm concerned about co-facilitating with someone. I'm concerned about how to do that. You know, I have a strong personality, I might not work well with another person, I'm used to being in charge, that might be hard. And so, you know, negotiating how to work with a co-instructor can be a challenge. It's also really great because you can, you know, work to your strengths. And it's just, you know, it's a lot for one person to hold the whole thing. Amy?
I was just gonna say about the co-facilitating, that's always been a struggle for me. Because I kind of like to do things my way, right? And so I've learned that about myself over time. And so what works for me is like Sharon and I presented a number of times together. So we spend a lot of time beforehand saying, you're doing this part, I'm doing this part. And how long do you have and how long do I have? And that's been really helpful. Really helpful to also have conversations about what's triggering, right? Because we all have our different things, whether it's a certain participant that might be triggering or a certain topic, or maybe you cry every time the remove video is on, so you want to make sure your co-facilitator takes that. But it's worth the time to talk a lot before you teach together around how that works best.
Just to add to that too.
Sorry.
Sarah and I co-facilitate also, and it's really helpful in terms of like workload. You know, we alternate each week who leads the group, and so it's really helpful to just have that 1 week where you're off and you can just kind of sit back and you can add to the conversation and be part of the group more. And then the following week you're the one prepping and getting things ready. So it's really helpful.
Just from the logistics piece too, like if we're getting dinner, like someone has to go, you know, meet the person to bring the food in and that kind of stuff. And if you're doing that and you're the only person, it makes it really hard to be present with the material. So it's nice to have that.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's another helpful hint. You know, being ready. So when, and that's not always possible. Let me recognize this. All these hints I'm giving you, it's not always possible. But if you arrive early and you make sure your technical stuff is set up, and you make sure your sign-in sheets are out, and make sure whatever handouts are going to be there, make sure everything is ready, that's the first stepping stone in creating community. Because what that allows you to do is when people are walking in the door, you can greet them. And you can say, hey, how you doing? Have a seat, sign in, right? It's the first step, it's a welcoming. The food thing too, we hear people say the food is kind of a pain in the neck, right? Thinking about where the money's gonna come from, logistically, especially if your group's in the morning, like screeching in and going to the store and trying to get to the classroom to start. But why do we do it? Why do we feed people? It makes them come. If you feed them, they will come. See, look, we fed you guys.
Well, it does make things easier on participants.
Right.
Like it's one less thing they have to be concerned with, or as a stumbling block or roadblock for them to be able to be there.
Right. And it's a way to say thank you.
Yeah.
Like, it was really hard for you to get here today. Here's a meal. Make this easier for you. You welcome them, have some food. And people bond over food. It's a caring thing. It's another solid community builder. You will never have someone walk in a room and go, food? I don't want food. It's ridiculous. That will never happen. People are always like, food! Yeah.
I know for some of our families that were participating in the group, like it was very exciting that every week they were gonna have a dinner that they didn't have to worry about making.
Right.
So like that helped with families like economically, obviously.
Yeah.
And just like the stress of like they knew that their kid was gonna be in the children's group and that they were gonna have dinner and that they were gonna have dinner in the adult group and then they could just relax.
Right. Yeah. And I tell you, I laugh every time I hear it, but I know it's a reality. When couples come to training together, when they say this is date night for us, we get a meal, we get to talk to other adults, we get a couple hours of time to ourselves. I mean, they mean it, right? But part of me is like, you need to come up with something else. So Amy, yesterday you guys talked about hotspots, and Amy just mentioned that you can have hotspots. Oh, I didn't know where I put my piece of paper. So yesterday you talked about hotspots for kids. Oops. I'll use red for hot. Today we're going to talk about your hotspots. What are your hotspots?
Remember hotspots for food and mealtime, sleep and bedtime, physical boundaries, in case you forgot what the hotspots were. For the kids.
Are you talking about specifically for like group? Or are you talking
Group,
about just in
life. Yeah, for the group. Like what, and some of them are here. Oops. Some of them are here. I'm triggered by something someone's saying. Someone's frustrating me because they won't let me move on. What are some of your other hotspots?
Mine would be not completely organized and ready to go before people start arriving.
I would add to that, as a first time, doing it for the first time in our foundations class, that takes a couple of times to get your bearings and your feet.
Right? How long
Not
things
necessarily
take.
like 2 whole sessions, but like a few classes to
Yeah.
really feel like, oh, I really do need
Yeah.
2 hours.
I remember you, the first day you were like, I'm sorry. I had no idea it would take that long. We're like, it's okay, we have a whole team here, we're gonna figure it out. So not, like this stuff happens when you're new and you don't know how long things are gonna take. This stuff happens when it's, you're 45 minutes before class and you're like, I'm all ready to go and I'm gonna go make my copies and the copy machine is broken. Right? Throws you off. It goes when you go to pick up the food and it's not ready. Or for us, no one knows how to do a purchase order.
Right.
These are the things. Or life happens, like you had a sick kid, you were sick. We don't always bring our best forward. That's just gonna happen. And so how do you rely on your team to make it happen? What are some other hot spots you would have?
I think one of mine is when there's somebody that kind of takes over the group and just won't stop.
Yep.
Showing up to really have it.
Oh, yeah.
2 people living in
Actually, no people showing up is okay. It's if 1 or 2 show up, it's horrible.
Right?
1 or 2,
I can't tell you how many times I've prepared for 15 people and 4 show up.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh,
It's all about sitting,
right?
so it's intimate.
It's intimate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say, you all are going to get some specialized attention today. Go ahead.
I would say I'm kind of triggered if a parent or somebody's really like cruel and verbally abusive when they talk about their kid. I can take venting and needing to, blow off steam, but if they're really saying hurtful things, I have a tough time with that.
I'll add one of my own when, and I get it, when foster parents say really cruel and negative things about birth parents. Right? And in a way, you're like, that's why you're in class. We're going to learn about this. We're going to get you through this. But it's just, that's a trigger for me, too.
One of mine is when people say, well, I've already tried that. I've
Oh,
tried everything.
yeah.
No being receptive to suggestions. Nothing works.
Right.
30 seconds, I just did it, it didn't work.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not
We've already got this all.
Yeah.
So some other things, a lot of we're gonna, right after this, we're gonna do, about those, we're gonna do an activity about challenging participants. Other things that I thought of were role confusion, not really sure, not really working it out with your co-instructor, whose job is what. So, or when you thought you worked it out, and this is probably mine, because I'm used to teaching alone all the time, and so there have been times when I've worked very diligently with my co-instructor, and then I just plow through their part and go, oops, oh my God, I'm so sorry, what's your name? Right? So that can happen, you can plan and things still happen, and so, yeah.
I was gonna add,
Oh,
I think for me, it was hard sometimes when you were working with families who worked with maybe your coworkers, like their therapist was on your team, and they were really negative about like their skills worker, their therapist, and those are your coworkers. I think that can be hard to sort of manage your own emotions around that.
Yeah. That's a good one.
I was also thinking that some adults' need for control, getting in the way of seeing the bigger picture.
Yep, yep. Okay. These are all really great things to keep in mind. And I also think that sometimes, especially for new instructors, that a hotspot can just be the anticipatory anxiety about what's going to happen. You know, you prep, you plan, you come to a training like this, and then you're waiting for it to start. And there can be a lot, like a hot spot for people is like, I feel really anxious about this. And sometimes that anticipatory anxiety can get in the way of your confidence. And so that's another reason why I had you, right, like, what are your superhero powers? Like, you always have that, even when you're not feeling so confident at the moment. That's still you. So, now we're going to talk about challenging participants. And this morning I handed out some slips of paper to people that are different characters. And so I'm going to have people read around the room what the characters are. Then, this time I'm going to give you all the instructions at once. We hear about the characters.
Not every table has one.
No, because people were just milling around when I gave them to people. Then around the room and in the hallway, I have on flip charts, I have the names of those characters. What I want you to do as you're hearing the names of the characters, I want you to think about who you are most like. Who are you in the group? And if not who are you, then who might be the biggest challenge for you? And I want you to break into groups. I'd like at least 4 at each flip chart. And grab some markers from your table, so we need a scribe and we need someone to report out. And I want you to talk about problem solve, how you will address this person in classroom, how you will support this person in classroom, what ideas you have to stop the behavior, change the behavior, redirect the behavior. What questions do you have about the instructions? Amy has one.
Can you just point out where the flip charts are? Sorry.
Yep. Let's see. I guess we have